Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Wednesday evening, May 14, 2025. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video. I'd really appreciate it if you guys get this video to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more persons who are in the path of these tropical systems so that we can keep everyone safe, especially during the peak months of Atlantic hurricane season. That's August through to October. Share this video with your friends, your co-workers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Please ensure that you all utilize the progress bar that's located at the bottom of the video, as well as the timestamps that are located not only in the comment section but the video description, so that you can skip to the points in the video that you want to see the most in order to save time, because we know that the videos over here with Jamaica can be very long. Leave a comment down below letting me know that that's been like in your ear recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related questions that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Excuse me. Alright, so we need to highlight this post that was made here on This Is a Blast Instagram page, stating something along the lines of some kind of a heat dome coming about in our neck of the woods. It states here, an early season heat dome is developing over the Gulf this week. This heat trapping lids of high pressure can lead to long-lasting heat waves. Extreme heat is forecast from Texas to Florida and Mexico to the Caribbean over the next 2 weeks. And we see they've highlighted all of these areas that should be involved in the heat dome. But the thing is, I've had numerous persons contacting me to find out whether or not this is true, and we have to look at the supercomputer model runs regarding this heat dome. So basically a heat dome, a ridge of high pressure, can definitely cause above normal temperatures. We know the above normal temperatures are represented by what we see here on the key on the right. That's the yellows, the oranges, the reds, the burgundies, all up into these colors that looks like gray. That's representing anywhere from 1 up to at least maybe even 10 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures. So first things first, we can see Jamaica right here as of right now embedded in some grays. The grays represent average temperatures, and some yellows slightly average temperatures, maybe at least 1 degree Celsius above average. Now they're saying that the high pressure heat dome should be extending from Texas across the Gulf into Florida, portions of the Caribbean, and portions of Central America, Mexico more specifically. So we're going to be going out in time to see how all of this actually plays out, to see if Jamaica is really going to be involved in some of these yellows, oranges, reds, and those gray shades. Let us see what unfolds. So we're heading into Thursday, and what do we see? Just some yellows across Jamaica, 1 degree Celsius above normal. Friday, we see some slight oranges, maybe 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above normal. Saturday, still seeing the slight yellows, maybe 1 degree Celsius above normal. Look at that. Sunday, grays, if not some slight blues, that represents average to below average temperatures. Heading into Monday, just some slight yellows, some slight oranges, maybe 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above normal for us in Jamaica. Same thing for Tuesday. Heading into Wednesday. So if you notice, we're basically on the edge of that high pressure heat dome. So Jamaica not necessarily going to be receiving the brunt of it, but we're going to be feeling somewhat of maybe some heat in general. But clearly the brunt of the heat, especially with the dark reds into the grays, is going to be across portions of the Gulf, portions of the United States, central US into portion of the eastern US for sure. So we're glad we're going to be getting more so on the average to at least slightly above average side, not the crazy above average sides, maybe the 3 to 5 up to even 10 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures that the US is going to be getting. They're definitely in for a crazy heat wave over the next week or so. Alright, so we're going to be looking at what the next 7 days have in store for us according to the latest Euro and GFS supercomputer model runs that came out today. So keep your eyes focused on the timestamp right here at the top as we go to the next one, John 68 hours. Keep your eyes focused on Jamaica right here as we look for all of this that we see on the key on the right. That's the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and the greens that represents inches of rainfall. So let's see what's going to be taking place. Excuse me. Heading into Thursday morning, what do we see? 12Z on Thursday, which is actually 7 a.m. on Thursday. We don't really see much of anything across Jamaica. We do see some rainfall across the southwestern Caribbean to the south of Hispaniola into portion of the Dominican Republic, extending into portion of the eastern Caribbean. Then on Thursday afternoon, we see that rainfall more so across sections of some central and western parishes. What does the GFS show for the same time period? Do we have agreement on both models? Thursday morning, we see some rainfall to our northeast, maybe some rainfall across the far eastern end. Then on Thursday afternoon, look at that. Rainfall mainly across central and western parishes, just like what the Euro was showing. What do we see for Friday morning? Excuse me. On Friday morning, not really seeing much of anything across the island, maybe some isolated shores to the north of us. We also see an abundance of moisture across the Dominican Republic, the waters to the south of Puerto Rico. And then on Friday afternoon, look at that. Rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes with all of those greens. What does the GFS show for the same time period? Excuse me. On Friday morning, we see rainfall to our north, to our northeast. We also see that abundance of moisture across the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. And then on Friday afternoon, we see that rainfall more so across sections of some central and western parishes. Let us see what's expected on Saturday. On Saturday morning, I really see much of anything across Jamaica. But look at the dark greens, yellows, oranges that represents maybe up to 3 to maybe 6 or more inches of rainfall. For areas such as Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, they're definitely going to be in for that, according to the latest Euro. Then on Saturday afternoon, look at that. Greens represent rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes. What does the GFS show for Saturday? Excuse me. On Saturday morning, maybe some isolated showers across the far northeast. We also see that abundance of moisture across the eastern tip of the Dominican Republic into Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands. Very interesting. Then on Saturday afternoon, look at that rainfall more so across sections of some eastern and southern parishes. Very interesting. What do we have in store for Sunday? On Sunday morning, not really seeing much of anything across Jamaica. Look at the abundance of moisture to the north, east, and south of Puerto Rico. Very interesting. Then on Sunday afternoon, look at that rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes. So daytime heating rainfall definitely in store for us. Sunday morning, not really seeing much of anything across Jamaica. Maybe the far northeastern end. You also see the abundance of moisture across the eastern Caribbean. Then on Sunday afternoon, we see rainfall mainly across central and western parishes in Jamaica, with the eastern Caribbean still getting in on the brunt of the rainfall. What does Monday show? On Monday morning, not seeing much of anything across Jamaica, more whites that represent to no rainfall. We also see that abundance of moisture across the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the ABC Islands, section of the eastern Caribbean in general. Then on Monday afternoon, look at that, rainfall across eastern, central, western parishes. What does the GFS show for the same time period? Monday morning, not really seeing much of anything across Jamaica. The abundance of moisture across the eastern Caribbean is there though. Then on Monday afternoon, look at this. Don't really see much of anything across Jamaica, so we have some contrast, we have some differences regarding the year and the GFS on Monday. What does Tuesday morning show? On Tuesday morning, look at that, we see some rainfall across the far eastern end of the island. We also see some rainfall to the south of Hispaniola, extending down to northwestern Venezuela, the ABC Islands. Looks like whatever was here affecting Puerto Rico is starting to push westward. And then on Tuesday afternoon, we see the moisture even increasing, even more rainfall expected across Jamaica. And then we're going to be stopping it right here at the end of the 168 hours. So this is valid for Wednesday, May 21. Don't see much of anything across Jamaica at this time, but we do see an abundance of moisture to the south of us, affecting sections of the waters to the north of Colombia, Panama, right there. What does the GFS show for the same time period? Tuesday morning shows rainfall across the eastern Caribbean, maybe some isolated shores across northeastern Jamaica. Tuesday afternoon, not really seeing much of anything across Jamaica. And then by the end of the day on Wednesday, we see, well, by the end of the 168 hours, we see some differences. So remember, we saw some rainfall maybe to the south of Hispaniola. Not really seeing much of anything on the GFS. Most of that rainfall is still affecting the far eastern Caribbean. Jamaica not really getting in on much of anything. So we have some contrasts, we have some similarities, we have some differences here and there. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out, and I will definitely be here to keep you posted with whatever occurs. taking a look at the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps here from the Euro and the GFS. Both maps right here are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until Wednesday, May 21. And we can clearly see that the most rainfall is going to be wherever we have the dark reds, purples into the pinks. That represents anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of rainfall. And that's going to be, according to the Euro, affecting portions of Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the US and British Virgin Islands, down into the ABC Islands, sections of Northern South America, as well as Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica. Some of this rainfall could definitely trigger some amount of isolated flash flooding in some spots. But the GFS is adamant that it's going to be more east of where it was highlighted by the Euro. The Euro had Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, even the ABC Islands highlighted. The GFS has more so the Eastern Caribbean islands highlighted. Anywhere from the Leeward Islands down into the Windward Islands, picking up the anywhere from 2 to maybe 6 inches of rainfall or more in some places. This could definitely trigger some amount of isolated flash flooding. We just hope that the people who reside in those areas are not caught off guard by what's to come, and they're taking the necessary precautions so that they're not that drastically affected if there's actually some amount of flooding or even landslides taking place. But we can clearly see that other areas are shaded in the greens, the yellows, the oranges up to the reds that represents close to an inch of rainfall. We're referring to areas such as much of Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, sections of Belize getting in on some of the action, sections of Cuba, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, section of the Bahamas getting in on some of that too. Nothing significant, just some normal 7-day rainfall totals, especially during the afternoon hours. And we're going to be switching gears and focusing most of our attention on Jamaica. We can see that Jamaica is shaded from the eastern end to the western end in the greens and the yellows that represents anywhere from 15 millimeters of rainfall up to at least 40 millimeters of rainfall in the Euro. The Euro going all the way up to at least 48 millimeters of rainfall. The GFS only going up to at least 28 millimeters of rainfall, especially across the southwest. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what unfolds, and whatever happens, I'll definitely be here to keep you posted with what occurs, so stay tuned on our other social media platforms. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, we can see that we have ridges of high pressure to the north that we know are responsible for sending all of the easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. You can see broken orange lines right here across the northern Bahamas associated with a trough. Frontal systems and troughs dominating the northern portion of the North Atlantic. And we see another trough right here to the northeast of South America. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before we lost sunlight, we can make out the trough that's currently affecting portions of the Bahamas, the trough that's currently right here to the northeast of the South America area, and we can see the numerous clouds associated with the troughs and the frontal systems across the northern portion of North Atlantic, not to mention the low level flow and the mid level flow of the clouds being steered from east to west, all courtesy of the ridges of high pressure to the north. We'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Wednesday, May 14, 2025. It was stated that rainfall would have been in the forecast of parts of central and western Jamaica on Wednesday afternoon. And we know central parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Middlesex, like St. Anne, St. Mary, Manchester, Clarendon, and St. Catherine. Western parishes, and we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall, like Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth. And what ended up happening? As early as 4:05 p.m., the infrared close-up satellite images were posted right here on our Twitter page with the Jamaica, as well as on our Instagram page with the Jamaica, on our TikTok page with the Jamaica, and on our Facebook page with the Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there as we make posts throughout the day that you can't afford to miss. So we can see the thunderstorms that lash portions of central and western parishes today. We see the sparkling white dots across section of St. Elizabeth, across section of Westmoreland too. Definitely had some convection. And we saw those clouds being sheared off towards the east-northeast. We spoke about this in yesterday's video. Yesterday it was more of a southwesterly upper level wind shear. Now today it's more of a west-southwesterly kind of upper level wind shear, and we saw those high clouds being sheared off towards the east-northeast, just as predicted, bringing more of those overcast skies to sections of some northern parishes. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before we lost the sunlight, we can definitely make out that low level flow of the low to mid level clouds being steered from east to west. Then when all of that piled up and we had that convection burst across section of central and western parishes, those upper level clouds are being sheared out towards the east northeast, just as we stated it would in yesterday's video. And we can see the infrared close-up satellite images even better. We saw that was nice, a very nice burst of convection, especially across section of northern St. Elizabeth, northern Manchester, southern Trelawney, and then we had the upper level clouds being sheared out towards the east northeast, just as stated. And we can make out the sparkling white, that's how we know represents some amount of lightning strikes, if not lightning flashes, for sure. And according to the live camera here from See Jamaica's YouTube channel, at around 10:19 a.m. you can see that it was definitely sunny for the most part across the Bagwalk Gorge. Nothing significant taking place. Looking throughout the day, definitely sunny 1:03 p.m. Looking through 2:50 p.m. definitely sunny. Not much in the way of rainfall that took place at all. Maybe an isolated sprinkle here and there. Yeah, man, it definitely rained at one point. Here we go. So this looks like it was raining at around, alright, there we go. So 4 p.m. it was dry. Then I believe sometime between 4 and 5, I think we had some brief rainfall somewhere in here between 4:08 and 4:10, because by 4:10 the ground is definitely soaked. So it starts at around 4:09, definitely sometime there. So they got in on some isolated rainfall for sure, but nothing significant to cause the rear Cobra to overflow its banks. Just a quick downpour at around 4:09 p.m. and I guess that was basically it, because there we have it. Doesn't seem like it was still raining at that time at all, but there we go. And then an hour later most of that had dried out for sure, and we're back up live right now. And I'd like for you to keep in mind that if you'd like to see more live streams like this halfway tree crossroads as well, you can visit See Jamaica on YouTube. They have these live streams for your viewing pleasure, and they're planning on increasing the amount of cameras that they have in and around the island. So subscribe today so that you don't miss out. Taking a look at the total accumulated precipitation for the past 24 hours from the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology website, this map does indeed paint quite the picture for we might have had that rainfall today, mainly across sections of some central and western parishes for sure. And we have at least 2 comments here from some of our followers on our Instagram page confirming what the weather was like in their area. We have Marlon_OneGod_ stating Clarendon partly cloudy, Javon Panton, Spanish Town cloudy at that time. And if we take a look at the very latest still image from the Weather Nerds website, let's see what's happening right now. The latest still image is still showing that we're having some upper level clouds, just some high cirrus clouds, especially across the northwestern end of the island. Also see some white shades in there. Nothing in terms of rainy weather at all, just some high cirrus clouds still being streaked off from the west southwest to east northeast by that upper level wind shear. And we see that this just came out at 00:05 UTC, which is actually 7:05 p.m. So this just came out 5, 10, 15, 16 minutes ago, considering that 7:21 p.m. right now. So it makes sense. And unfortunately, it looks like the Cuban Doppler radar glitched out once again. We're reloading that. We're reloading the Guantanamo Bay Cuban Naval Radar imagery, and we're also reloading the Cayman radar, so that we have the very latest images to show. Alright, so clearly the Cuban Doppler radar glitched out at around 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is actually 3 p.m. Jamaica time. At that time we saw that sections of central western parishes were getting in on some rainfall, even although that's mixed in with some ground flutter. So don't be fooled by especially the northern areas. It was more so that area that we see northern St. Elizabeth getting in on their fair share of some afternoon rainfall. The Guantanamo Bay Cuban Naval Radar imagery not showing much of anything across northeastern Jamaica, but we do see some isolated shores in and around southeastern Cuba. And then on the Cayman radar we can make out that they definitely got on some rainfall across section of south central Cuba. Not seeing much of anything across western Jamaica at that time. Not seeing much of anything across the Cayman Islands either. Maybe some isolated sprinkles right here to the south of there. And if we take a look right here at the live camera from See Jamaica's YouTube channel, we can see that at around 7:22 p.m. Definitely fear people walking about, going about their business, whoever going on the night shift, whoever is going home. Hope they all get there safely. And we see people in their vehicles going about their business for sure. And the evening should continue to be fair for the most part. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see about 27 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 26 degrees Celsius in Kingston, and by about 4 a.m. on Thursday, the temperature should dip down to about 25 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 24 degrees Celsius in Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is valid for 18D on Thursday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Thursday. And we can see Jamaica right here embedded in the grays and some slight yellows. The grays, as we know, represents 0, that's average temperatures. The yellows represents 1, that's 1 degree Celsius above normal temperature. So we're not yet in the high pressure heat dome that they've been talking about. All of that is still located across portions of Mexico, the Gulf, and portion of the United States, where they're getting anywhere from 1 all the way up to, it looks like, maybe 9 degrees. We see those slight gray shades in there above normal temperatures, up to 9 degrees Celsius above normal. That's crazy. That's definitely a heat wave for sure. Jamaica doesn't want to get in on any of that. So we're glad that for 1 p.m. on Thursday, this is the forecast at least 1 degree Celsius above normal. I know the normal temperature for the month of May across Jamaica is around 89 degrees Fahrenheit. When that's converted to degrees Celsius that we use here in Jamaica, that is around 31.6 degrees Celsius. So I should be receiving anywhere from 31.6 to 32.6 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Thursday. And unfortunately, we have some maintenance outage advisories here from my JPS Online's Twitter page that we have to highlight. I know that we have to highlight this because we know that when we have power outages somewhere across the island, it can definitely make the heat feel even worse because we don't have our fan or AC to cool us down. So if you live or work in these areas, or if you have friends or relatives who live or work in these areas, please let them know that a power outage is coming their way on Thursday, May 15, 2025. We're referring to Watchwell, to Kinkead, Newell, Pedro Plains, Treasure Beach, Little Park, Blaggerman, Roan Hill, Congo Hole, Seaview, Queensbury, Great Bay, Old Wharf, Southfield, Kinkead, and the environments, all in the parish of St. Elizabeth from 6:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Lawrence Park, Keats, Content in the parish of St. Anna from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And finally, we have Redberry to St. Toulis in the parish of Manchester from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we have some tips right here to beat the heat as usual. It states here, when outside, seek shade. Eat fresh or eating cold foods such as salads and fruits. Rest, make sure you get enough sleep and rest if you're feeling tired. Soak, take a cool shower or bath to help you cool down. And I cannot stress enough the importance of staying hydrated throughout the day. Drink lots of water, even if you're not thirsty, and put away those sugar drinks and drink water instead. Taking a look at the dry air map, we know that the dry air is represented by what we see here on the key on the bottom. That's the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the whites within those reds. You can see the abundance of dry air across the northern portion of North Atlantic, abundance of dry air off the coast of Africa, the abundance of dry air across the Gulf. And we know the dry air is responsible for keeping the atmosphere stable, making it harder for it to rain, making it harder for us to get storms this time of year. But what we like to see is the abundance of moisture. Wherever we see the blues, wherever we see the light shades of greens, that's a lot of moisture for sure. We see that all across the Caribbean, the intertropical convergence zone of the Pacific and the Atlantic. And that's what we want. We want the moist air. We want the low end of the scale in terms of dry air, so that we can get more rainfall to keep water in our pipes. Regarding the Saharan dust forecast for 18 UTC on Thursday, 18 UTC is 1 p.m. And we can see the intensity of the Saharan dust across portions of Africa with these dark shades of brown. That's representing anywhere from 50 all the way up to 1,000. All of that we know can cause very hazy skies, not to mention trigger somewhat of respiratory illnesses in some persons. So we're indeed grateful that for 1 p.m. on Thursday, Jamaica, the Greater Antilles, for the most part, all of us are in the clear. The only thing that we basically see is just some strand of Saharan dust, the dust concentration near ground only going from anywhere from a 1 all the way up to a 13 in intensity, especially across the southern main development region into portions of the Windward Islands. Nothing significant to talk about at all. Regarding the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can clearly see that Jamaica should be embedded in those light shades of blues to dark shades of blues. We see that especially across the eastern Gulf, the Bahamas, that's where the lowest waves should be. Highest waves seem to be right here across the waters to the east of the Caribbean, that's where we have the purples. represents maybe close to 2 meter wave height. But if we zoom in on Jamaica regarding our wind forecast or wave forecast, up to at least 0.7 of a meter wave height on the north coast to the north of St. Anne, to 0.6 of a meter wave height to the north of Hanover, up to 1 meter wave height to the north of Portland, south coast 0.5 of a meter wave height to the south of Westmoreland, to the south of St. Elizabeth 0.9 of a meter wave height, south of Clarendon 0.7 of a meter wave height, south of St. Thomas at least 1.3 meter wave height, and that's because of the winds that are expected. The winds seem to be coming in from the east, definitely more of an easterly flow across the entire Caribbean, as we can see here, curving northward into the Gulf right there, more of a southeasterly flow over there. And we see the greens anywhere from 10 to 20 knots at most for the most part. But regarding Jamaica's wind forecast, we can definitely see the flow coming in from the east on the north coast up to at least 10 knots for sure. Definitely, we see that 11 knots right here to the north of Hanover. On the south coast up to 13 knots, definitely going to be higher in the winds. On the south coast, 12 knots to the south of St. Thomas. And we see that we have the blues that represent the least amount of winds across sections of some central and western parishes. That's where we're going to be having all of the air pile up. We're going to be having the clouds building, then we have that daytime heating, rainfall, and with the upper level winds coming in more so from the west northwest tomorrow, it could favor some of these clouds that we saw today. Let's look back at the clouds that we saw today. Remember when we had that convection today being sheared off towards the east northeast or the east? For tomorrow, if we get convection, it's going to be shearing off towards the east southeast given the upper level wind shear forecast for us, and that could favor more of that overcast sky activity across sections of some southern parishes. Who knows, maybe even favoring more of that rainfall across sections of some southern parishes, especially considering that it's more so of an easterly flow. We'll see it actually plays out either way. And both maps from the Euro and the GFS are adamant that it's going to be raining mainly across sections of some central and western parishes. The Euro trying to incorporate portions of eastern Jamaica, even right here to the east of Jamaica we see some rainfall. Very interesting. We really need the rainfall in the east. I live in the east and I think I just heard a fire truck passing. Did you hear it? Why the fire brigade cannot catch a break. Lots of fires taking place these days. So hopefully we get some much needed rainfall out here in the east in St. Thomas soon. But clearly this is the forecast for 3 p.m. Jamaica time. Rainfall mainly across sections of some central western parishes. We're talking about maybe section of St. Andrew, Kingston, maybe section of northern St. Catherine, Clarendon, St. Anne, Trelawney, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, southern St. James, section of southern Hanover, Westmoreland getting in on the action. And we can clearly see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in agreement with this forecast, so the chances are higher for it to actually take place. But regarding the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps now, both maps right here from the Euro and the GFS are adamant that it's going to be raining somewhere in Jamaica within the next 24 hours. The Euro going all the way up to at least 0.38 of an inch of rainfall. The GFS going all the way up to at least 0.45 of an inch of rainfall. And whatever happens, we'll definitely take it. We are in the month of May, and in May we usually receive an increase in rainfall compared to April. And in Kingston, this bar graph is being shown right here at the top. We usually receive close to up to 140 millimeters of rainfall for the month of May. In Montego Bay, this bar graph is being shown right here at the bottom. We usually receive close to 6 inches of rainfall for the month of May. And I'd like for you to keep in mind that if you'd like to find out what your specific parish usually receives in terms of rainfall for the month of May or for the entire year, you can visit weatherandclimate.com and that website to show you that information. And you can use this nice graphic right here that converts rainfall from inches to millimeters. You know that 1 inch of rainfall is about the same as 25 millimeters of rainfall, so you can do the math yourself. Alright, so that is it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So as stated, we have some low to mid-level clouds pushing through the Caribbean with some moisture as we speak. The usual thunderstorm activity across sections of Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, sections of Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico definitely got their fair share of rainfall today. And if we take a look at the Doppler radar imagery of the Puerto Rico area, look at this. We have rainfall to the north of Puerto Rico, to the south of Puerto Rico, affecting eastern Puerto Rico as we speak. Moderate and heavy rainfall in and around the US and British Virgin Islands. Section of the Dominican Republic getting on some of that action too. And if we load the Doppler radar images from earlier today, we can see that section of Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica got on some rainfall. And if we take a look at the Barbados radar, there'll be some isolated showers passing from east to west to the north and south of there. They might have gotten on some isolated sprinkles, especially across southern Barbados. We see some rainfall sitting on the south side of Martinique as we speak. Eastern Dominica getting on some isolated shores, not seeing much of anything across St. Lucia, but that could change as the evening progresses. St. Vincent, not seeing much of anything, but the Grenadines sure are, and we see some rain bands to the east of the Grenadines pushing in. We also see some rain band passing through a section of Grenada, and look at that, some decent rain bands coming into portions of Trinidad and Tobago, especially northeastern Trinidad as we speak. They're definitely getting nailed. I'm sure they're grateful for the rainfall if it's not going to be doing too much damage. Taking a look at the weather view of Doppler radar images, we can make out that rainfall across central Cuba, and we definitely saw on the Cayman radar. We can also make out that rainfall across section of Colombia, Venezuela, northeastern Venezuela as well. And regarding where the rainfall is expected within the next 24 hours, both maps right here from the year and the GFS are adamant that it's going to be raining across section of Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, section of Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana. We also see that rainfall expected for sections of Hispaniola, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, section of Cuba, section of the Bahamas, isolated shores for section of Jamaica, section of southern Guatemala, El Salvador, and we see rainfall definitely in store for portions of Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados getting on some of that. And we can clearly see that both the year and the GFS models are in agreement with this forecast. I know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances are higher for it to actually take place. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.